third installment of the Rita B. Leahy Career Series for PhDs. So this series was created by the generosity of one of our alumni. Rita is really committed to making sure that our current doctoral students get exposed to a wide range of career options for them, much more than just academia. Okay, so this is the third installment. Our fourth installment will be on April 8th, and it's going to be careers with the federal government. Ready? So I've got some notes here. This series has really the two priorities. It is making sure that you get exposed to alternative career paths and the ones that you're considering, but it's also a chance to network. And I know for many people, networking feels scary or uncomfortable, but the way that we do the series is that you can meet other doctoral students, but you also get a chance to meet some of our really incredible alumni and begin to expand your own professional network. You never know who someone knows, right? I hope tonight that you're actually going to learn from their stories. Oftentimes, the doc students that I meet think that it's from point A to point B, and career is a linear process. That's not true, and I'm sure you're going to hear from their stories that a lot of things happen along the way. So hopefully you'll leave tonight with some ideas about how you can apply the lessons that they've learned to your own life. I want to point out a few folks that are in the room. My colleague, Dr. Anna DeChek-Qualls. I really know her name. It's called Anna. She's from the graduate school, and she's really been instrumental in helping put this series together. And then in the back of the room is Jeffrey Zheng. He's the graduate assistant for PhD and postdoc career development. So he's helping with the technology, and he's been really instrumental in developing all the services that we have for doc students. So at the end, I'll tell you about some of the resources that are over on the table there. The way things are going to unfold tonight is I've sent some questions for both Dr. Albeny and Dr. He to think about, and those questions are going to guide how they tell you about their story, to the work that they do, what they do, and some advice that they have for you. So they'll each take, with two panelists, we have 15 minutes plus or minus, and then we'll do group Q&A. I know a lot of times when you go to the conferences in your discipline, you want to line up and talk to the speaker and just ask your question, but that is not really super helpful, because I guarantee you, whatever question you have, 4 other people in the room have a question. So the Q&A should be more of a group kind of activity, and there's no such thing as a question that you should feel embarrassed to ask. I guarantee you that 4 other people are thinking it. And for many of you, the notion of searching for work outside of academia, it might be a new thing. So again, you're here to learn, and there's no such thing as a bad question. On your chairs near you, I know we're paper averse in today's culture, but honestly, I think if you don't write things down, you forget about them. So I've created a little note sheet, and it's got both speakers' names on it. It's got their companies, and I want to challenge you as you listen to their stories to think about what their journey was like to their consulting position. I want you to listen to the types of skills that they use day to day, because as doctoral students, you have a lot of these transferable skills. You may not think that you do right now, but you do. I also want you to listen and try to understand more about how networking and connections with people, relationships with people, informed their career path. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, right? And then lastly, I want to challenge you to think about how, even though they're in different disciplines than you are, how their journey and the advice that they give you might be applied to your own quest to find work that you love and to find your next position, okay? So take notes on the sheet. At the end of the event, or tonight when you go home, please fill out our evaluation form. That's how we're going to improve this next time. Okay. Before I let our panelists talk, I want to share with you some resources about the consulting industry. So before tonight's session, I went and I did a little Dr. Google, you Google a question. The consulting industry is $250 billion with a B dollars worldwide. In the U.S., it's almost $70 billion. Okay, there are 700,000 consultants. 700,000. Wrap your head around that. It's a huge employment sector. And it's a huge employment sector that I'm going to guess many of your advisors in your programs aren't exposing you to necessarily. So this is a great opportunity to learn about two parts of that employment sector. The Vault is a tool that's inside of your Careers for Terps account. And I did a quick snip and showed you all the different Vault guides. These are downloadable books about the consulting industry. It's a great place to start. And then on the back, I went into LinkedIn, and I will tell you, if you don't have a LinkedIn account or you're not using it, that is definitely something you want to start thinking about leveraging. All I did is I looked up the University of Maryland alumni, and I put in the word consultant, and there are 4,000 consultants that came up real quickly. And it looks like 1,700 of them live in the D.C. area. Okay, so if you want to know more about consulting after tonight, there's a whole network of Maryland alumni that are out there to answer questions. Okay, so that's the backdrop. And I'm going to ask Dr. Albeny to go first. And I will stand back. I'll kind of give you like a little 5-minute warning, okay? And then we'll move on to Dr. Leahy.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenyatta Albany, and I graduated from the Comparative Literature program in 2015. Do I have anyone from the School of English, Department of English, Comparative Literature? I didn't think so. So does anyone know what comparative literature is? I'm glad you don't. And I think that's key because, and I looked it up on the website, it says it promotes the rigorous study of multidisciplinary text. Exactly. So currently I work in the project management office of a healthcare IT firm that is working on behalf of the federal government. That's our client, and my job is called solutionist. Have you ever heard of a solutionist? Nope. I've been there 90 days, and 97 days ago, I don't know that I heard of it. Also important because what I want to tell you and get you to understand is my journey is the journey of a misfit toy. I still love literature, and I started in literature, but I've been able to have a career that has taken me to all sorts of interesting projects and in spaces that I could not have imagined that I would find myself in. And so that can also be your journey if you choose it. So as a solutionist, it is a hybrid position. It is project management work, and it is technical writing. I have been a management consultant, but I've also been a consultant as an editor, as a researcher, as a writer. I've worked as a teacher. I've taught overseas. I've worked for municipal government. I've worked as a contractor for federal government. So I've done lots of different things. I've even worked at Macy's at Christmas time, all with my PhD or in graduate school. But what's important for me to let you know is despite what seems like disparate positions, there have really been 4 skills or 4 areas that tie all those things together for me. Research, facilitation, and teaching, writing, and problem solving. And those were skills that I really honed as a graduate student here. I couldn't have imagined that I would end up at a health IT firm doing consulting with those of you who are in the scientists with, subject matter experts who are talking about interoperability and things like that I just had no idea. But I can hold my own because I'm a researcher. I learned, how to write. I learned, how to facilitate meetings and how to be a liaison. And all those skills have served me in navigating a number of different kinds of positions. One of the things that I also wanted to talk about is my journey here at Maryland in terms of a career development. When I came to Maryland, I was very young with no real work experience. I think I had 2 internships abroad. I had a master's degree in international affairs, but no work experience. New to Washington, knew nothing, and I entered a graduate program and began taking classes and thinking that I would finish very quickly and become an English professor or literature professor. But what happened when I started having work experiences outside, in conjunction with going to classes, you need more money. So I started having work experiences that really opened the doors and showed me that my skills that I thought were narrowly leading me to a specific path were far more transferable and wider, and opened the doors to working at a number of different kinds of organizations in Washington, from foundations to corporate entities that needed short-term employees to do research, and whereas in this space I might have felt like, I'm not a great writer. In the science space, I'm an all-star. No, but I'm joking. But the truth is, we underestimate our value until we see our value outside of this space. And so, if I could tell you anything, it is not a sidestep to explore jobs, even short-term positions, in something that doesn't seem like it's exactly aligned with where your academic path should, quote unquote, lead. One of the things that Susan talked about was networking. You should also know that, with the exception of one position in the last 20 years, I've all of the roles that I've had, someone has recruited me, or it's been through a connection. I think that we cannot underestimate the value of being in relationship with folks, and not in a nasty, grubby way, but in a way like just humans relating to other humans and knowing and connecting to them. Also using tools like LinkedIn. My current position as a solutionist, as I told you, it is technical writing and it is project management, which that is in my wheelhouse, and I actually like it. I would never have found my position. It found me. I was on LinkedIn. There I have my skills. There I have my certifications. There I have what looks like, this moving around different places. And and a company approached me and said, "We think we have a position that your skills are a fit for," and they are. I just wouldn't have found it. The position that I had before this, I was recruited. They found me on LinkedIn, and I got into consulting in the first place because a friend said, "Hey, have you thought about consulting?" And I was like, "No, I was thinking about being an English professor, and she said, well, while you look, consider doing this. And I applied, got a position, and from there I loved what I was doing. And so I think that networking is important. I think that seeing your skills, learning to see your skills outside of the academic space is important. And I think that I wrote lots of things down, but also being flexible and willing to learn new things. As I told you, I was in literature. A lot of the work that I've done has taken me to areas where I am not an expert. I'm a novice. But one thing that has worked for me is I always say, hey, you can send me to a class. I can learn about that. I don't know anything about interfaces, but if you give me something to read, I'll learn about interfaces. I remember when I first finished my PhD, I wanted to do more technical writing. I was like, wow, I believed that I don't want to do any more training. But I decided to take on some additional classes, and these aren't classes at the University of Maryland. This was just classes through what used to be USDA, through a position that I had, just to sharpen up on editing. And from there, doors opened. Then, as my career moved on in consulting, I said, I think maybe I need to know more about project management. I'm going to take the PMP exam. And a lot of people said, why would, do you really want to do that? I mean, technical writers don't really need that. And I said, no, but I can see that in the landscape of what we do, knowing these project management skills. And hey, I know how to study. I know how to, this is something I can learn. And my employer was like, great, that's something you want to learn. And again, it propelled me on to another position. And so my experience has been being open and being flexible, and has really helped me to find myself in some really unique and enjoyable consultancies. And I say consultancy because there's different kinds of consultants. Dr. Leahy is going to tell you more about her experience. Like I said, I've been a management consultant, but I've also been a consultant for places like the World Bank, where it's a short-term consultancy. We need you to edit this project for this, and that's a specific. Or nonprofits, we need you to do this research assignment for this, and those are different and shorter, and sometimes they feel feast or famine in terms of if a job, but I've been able to cobble together quite an interesting career, and I think that it's not one where there was a lot of uncertainty. There are always new opportunities. It's just you learn to take inventory of what you enjoy, and there is a path there. And I think I'll stop.
I hope you all you have time to stay a little longer. Talk to Dr. Albany more. I just talked to her like 5 minutes before the event, and she definitely wowed me. I have a lot less experience than her, so I encourage you to talk to her more. So my name is Zheng, and I graduated from ARAC here in 2017. Before I talk about my journey, I want to take a quick pause here. How many of you plan to be on the job market this fall? Okay. I guess it's like half and half. For those folks who raise their hand, you probably want to hear more about the job market, how to land a job. For those of you who didn't raise your hand, my assumption is you want to hear more about the skills you can do or like the new experience you want to gain in order to land your job later. My experience is that I started, I did my undergrad partially in Beijing in China. That's where I grew up. And then I went to Canada for an exchange program for a year. And then I went back to Beijing, taught English for a year, the TOEFL, the English, the test of English as a foreign language. There you go. And then I went to New York University for my master's degree in economics. And then I came to Maryland for my PhD in agricultural and resource economics. And I believe maybe most of the PhD students, you started your journey as a PhD student thinking that you want to be a professor, like Dr. Albany wanted to be a literature professor. I wanted to be an economic professor. I also feel like I want to learn more about economics, and but many of my peers from NYU, they actually went to get an internship in New York, find a job in New York. There's a millions company in New York. In New York, it's actually very predictable path for NYU graduates to do. I was one of the 4 people from my class actually pursue a PhD. And when I was here, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Actually, when I was on the job market, I applied for everything, like literally everything. I had a location preference. I wanted to go to the West Coast, so I applied for everything on the West Coast and a few on the East Coast. And then, so I did. During my PhD time here, I wanted to try to get more experience on different areas. So I did teach undergrad class independently in the summer, and I did an internship at Resource for the Future. It's a think tank in DC. And then the 4th summer I was here, I was debating if I wanted to do a internship in the consultancy or I want to travel. I decided the latter. So actually, my husband and I, we gave up our apartment, put our stuff in the storage, we just packed our bag and go. And we went to 15 countries in Europe. We basically just lived abroad for a whole year. That's my last year in PhD. I told my advisor that, and he was like, okay, whatever. He's fantastic. Everybody in my department knows that how much I admire my advisor. So I finished my dissertation actually in Poland when I was traveling, and then I did prepare all the job market package when I was somewhere in Europe. So that was fun. And then I came back for all the interviews, and I went through the brutal job market. Not as lucky as Dr. Albany. If the job found you, no job found me. So I think I applied for 104 jobs in total, and I got 16 interviews, and then 7 flyouts, and I landed 2 jobs. And the 2 jobs are actually very different. One is academic, one is consultancy, and I chose EY because the other one is the faculty job is in a very, very tiny town, and where my husband probably find no job. So thinking of that, we just moved back to Virginia. So that's my journey. I want to talk a little about, if you're curious about what financial consultants do. So what I do is we help banks make better decisions and help them to stay compliant to all kinds of regulation. You know, banks, they make decisions based on a lot of models. And just for example, if I loan you $100, you might default and you may not pay back, and I have to reserve for that. And you may pay back half of it or a portion of it. I have to predict how much you're going to pay back, and how much I'm going to lose, and when are you going to default? And think about, but that's just $100. Think about $1 million, $2 million, or like a project so big, combines different loans together, or think about 2 million credit cards. How you're going to predict the loss on that? So all these decisions are backed up by models, and we sort of help the banks to develop and validate, and we implement. We help them back test all the models. That's what we do. In terms of the skills, I would say a lot of modeling skills and programming as well. However, that's really not what the employers are looking when they're interviewing you, because I was telling P1 earlier, when after they hire me, I ask the partner, why did you hire me? Because I did nothing related to financial industry when I was in PhD. And he said, oh, I didn't need any of your research. Like, thank you very much. Actually, at the interview, for my dissertation, I did a lot about the trucking industry, the emission regulation policies. And I went to a lot of conferences, and they all call me trucking girl. And so the part when he interviewed me, he said, you know, you are never going to research on trucking industry. Are you okay with that? You're never going to be called an expert of whatever you're interested in. And that was a tricky question, right? So back to what Dr. Albany was saying, that it needs to be flexible if you want to go into consultancy, because you're not going to choose your client, at least for now. Maybe when you're a partner, you can, but a lot of times you cannot choose your part. You cannot choose your project. They say you can, but you really cannot. So be flexible, and a lot of the skills and the habits on a consultancy, you will learn the job very quick, and then they expect you to learn it very quick. And I'm still learning every day new things. Every project I've been doing has been different. I would say I'm actually very fortunate in that. In consultancy, the perks, one of the benefits of working in consultancy is you get to work on different things. You get to work with different people. In a lot of jobs, you have your boss for 10 years, just the same person, but in consultancy, your team change all the time, your boss change all the time. I actually went to my partner once, say, I've been working with this particular manager for several projects already. I want to change a manager. I want to change a different project and just experience different management styles for my own benefit. I want to learn different management styles for myself, and I did end up working with other people. So it kind of goes with my philosophy of trying different experience. So I think that's exciting about consultancy. Also, it's very fast-paced. If you don't like that, it's probably not a good fit in consultancy. I find it's very challenging, but it's also very stimulating. And there's a lot of management consultants, financial consultants. For economic consultants, if you're interested in, they travel less. They do a lot of litigation work. I know this from my peers who went to a very good economic consulting firm. That's the information. So that when I was a graduate student, I didn't have like the workshop like this. So the information I got is mostly from my peers who have been working in the industry, or some professors. But professors, they're going to tell you what they want to tell you, right? So I really encourage you to reach out to people who have experience. And I think, honestly, I think there are a lot of students who had prior working experience. And those folks, grab them when you can. They're gold. What they say is gold. Because I think those people really know what they want to achieve once they get the PhD. They know why they want the PhD for. I didn't know. So me neither. So those people probably graduate faster too. That's what we see in our department. Folks who have a clear mind what they want to achieve. They do their first year paper on that topic, and they have targeted professors they want to work with. They have co-author outside of academia, work within academia outside of this school, so they get things done faster. They get out faster. So those people, you wanna talk to them about their experience, and come to this kind of event. Talk to us. Some other networking. Yes, you didn't want us to talk about networking. I actually hold a different view about networking. I'm a very extroverted person. You may tell I love to talk. So when I go to conferences, I did go to as much conference I can get money on. I can get funding to go to those conferences and also talk about my research. And so I network a lot. But at the end, I feel like those networking actually didn't really lead to the result I wanted. You know, I talk to people at the conference, and I'm thinking maybe, let's say I talk to this assistant professor in Chicago, thinking maybe he'll like me, she'll like me, and then he'll give me a reference or potentially hire me to his or her school. But that would never happen, you know. To me, networking is, you have to bring value to the relationship. You can't expect to receive something from the other party without giving out anything. And as a graduate student, if you just network with professors or industry people, the value you can bring to them, at least it's not very obvious, right? Also, I read about this from a book. There are like 3 pillars to foster relationship. Any relationship, romantic relationship, professional relationship, is duration, frequency, and intensity. So if you think about those networking events, you meet someone and talk for 15 minutes, and that's it, and maybe you meet him or her again next year. So duration is very, very, very short. It's only 15 minutes. And the frequency is once a year or just once in a lifetime. That's nothing. And intensity, meaning the quality of your interaction. You just talk about the weather, the food, the catering. We're a little bit of your research. Maybe that person is interested, or maybe not. I would say the quality is not there. So none of these 3 pillars exist. And in my opinion, is this relationship is not solid. And you shouldn't spend too much time on this kind of networking. What I think is important for networking or for building relationships is you can at least have one strong pillar. For example, if with your co-author, if you have a co-author, you guys talk all the time, so the frequency is there. And you guys debate, you guys discuss your conclusion or your model, what have you, and then the frequencies, and then the duration. The projects probably last for half a year, depends on how your field. For economics, usually lasts a year, I would say. So the duration is there, and then the intensity of, because you guys will debate, you guys will I don't know, work very closely. So the quality of the intensity is there. So that's a good relationship you want to keep and you want to utilize. For example, I co-authored with someone in UC Davis. So if one day that guy called me and say, "Hi, I want to join EY," I'm gonna give him a good reference. I'm gonna tell my boss, say, "He's good. Let's hire him if we can, if we have the budget." So this is the relationship you want to keep and you want to use later. That's my opinion on networking. I'm sure everybody has their own opinion. In terms of advice, I'm a little hesitant to say this is advice because it's also very individualized. So to me, number one rule where something I think highly of is be yourself. Just be genuine, be yourself, and be honest. It's really in the same bucket of be yourself. My big boss told me that you can never succeed if you try to be someone you're not, and that's just so true. This will show in your interview, in your future work, every day. I'll give you an example. When I was interviewed at EY, they asked me, the senior manager, now he's a partner, he asked me, we use SAS. Have you having any experience with SAS? And I only used Stata before. I heard of SAS, but never used it. And to me, I thought if I could have said, oh, I used a little bit, in class, but I'm not very good at it. I could just sugarcoat it a little bit, and then I decided not to. So I actually said, I've never used SAS in my life. but I'm willing to learn if that's required for the job. And I believe I'll be a fast learner, but I do need to learn it, and there'll be a learning curve. It turns out I did use SAS a little bit in my job. It's not even that much. And even now, I will tell when I get on a project, if they use Python or something, I'll tell them I don't know Python, but I will learn. So I think just be honest, and actually, if I wasn't honest, with SAS, I would have really make a fool of myself, because on one project, I accidentally deleted all the client's data. This was my first time using SAS. What do you expect, right? So if I told people I'm good with SAS and then I make this stupid mistake, I would just look really bad on myself. Instead, it would just an honest mistake, and luckily they have backup systems. So that was fine. The second point I want to say is be humble. I think this is especially for PhD students, because you've been working on the field that you're really good at. I was a trucking girl. I was an expert in trucking, and you take pride of what you're doing. So with that, sometimes you lose sight of other people's opinion. And when you go into consultancy, your clients have been staring at this thing forever, and you are new to this. So there are a lot of and you're supposed to give advice, but they've been working on it for so long, and if you have the attitude of I'm the expert, they're not going to like you, right? If they don't like you, they won't talk to you, they won't listen to you, they won't pay for your service. So be humble. I think I also benefit a lot from when I was a PhD student. Actually, first year, I didn't tell many people about this story, so it's a little embarrassing. The first year, I did this first year paper, and about resource curves or something. I think about resource curves, and I was very proud of it, and I was presenting to the class. And in our department, Professor Chambers, he's a very great professor. He's tremendous. I have tremendous respect for him. So I was presenting. I have like 13 or 14 slides, and on the title slide, I just said, I have this new method, and I think it's better than whatever the method I found in the literature. And he said, "Why is better?" I said, it's better, mumble something. And he said, "Tell me mathematically why it's better, why your method is better." I said, let me go to the following slides, and I'll explain. And he said, no, just on the blackboard, tell me right now, mathematically, why your method is better than whatever the author is. Honestly, I didn't know, and there's only so much I can BS, right? And then I couldn't write any equation because I don't have any equation. So I felt I was just froze there. And then he kept asking me, "Why is it better? Tell me." So for the 45 minutes entirely, we stayed on that title page. Didn't go to the next page. That's my the class, or the final project of that class. So I think it took like 40% of the grade, and that felt really, really bad and embarrassing in front of all my classmates. And then finally, the class ended, and there's other students waiting at the door. We had to get out, and I remember turning back, and just couldn't hold my tears. I'd never felt that embarrassed before. And then after the class, and I cried for a while, and then the professor emailed me to go to his office. So I did. I went into his office, and I cried again. And he was so nice. He poured me a cup of espresso. He has an espresso machine in his office. And then he told me the lesson that I would never forget. He said, "It's okay. That's something you don't know. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to admit that you don't know. And it won't make you look stupid. Actually, if you just try to BS, it will make you look stupid. And you always need to remember to stay humble so that you can absorb more, and you'll be stronger and you'll be better." and he actually told me that he had a very high expectation of me. And it was just like a light bulb, right? And from that day on, I always told myself that you know, you may be the expert in something, but there's always more you can learn, and it's okay to say I don't know. And I went to a lot of presentations, and I gave a lot of talks about my paper and my research, and there's questions that I don't know from the audience, and whenever that happens, I think about Professor Chambers, really, every single time. It's funny that there's one of the conference I gave this presentation, and then there was like few questions actually from the audience that I have no idea, and I just said, well, you know what, I don't have the answer now, but let me get back and I will figure it out, or I'll check something and I'll get back to you. Do you mind giving me your email after this presentation? And so from that conference, actually, that was the conference I won the Best Student Paper Award. So just admitting that you didn't know something didn't make me look bad at all. I mean, I was the best paper. So I think that was my point of being humble, and especially as a consultant. Yeah, that was my point. Let's see, anything else? I think we can go to the Q&A session. Right?
Could we please give both of our consultants a round of applause? So this is the third time that we've done this, and every time the universe provides the perfect people to show and contrast the different industries, the different disciplines, but there's some common themes that you've heard here. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and I'm going to encourage the individuals who are on WebEx to also type them in. Jeffrey's typed them in, but let's take a question from the audience. Does someone have a question? Don't be shy. You can ask anything here. This is a space where there's no such thing as a question that's not a correct question. Go ahead. So, introduce yourself and where you are in your program and your discipline.
All right. So my name is Rita. I'm a fourth-year student in biological science program. So my question is kind of related to the biological science part. So for me, my PhD is very specific in one area, and there's within the PhD, just the way it's structured, there's not a lot of room to go outside of your particular interest, right, of your research. So there's very little opportunity to do other stuff, right? We don't get a lot of time from our PIs to, take a summer off and do an internship, for example. This is pretty rare. So what would be a good way to kind of get some experience or reach out to consulting firms to maybe get like a foot in the door while still doing my PhD and getting ready to graduate?
I think I am not in biological science, but I've worked on projects that are actually, most of the projects I've worked on have been in STEM areas. You would be surprised. There are lots of consultants working in those fields. I would say you could use tools like LinkedIn and to find people to talk to. Perhaps not for internships because you may not have the time, but to connect to people who have have a similar background, just to speak to them about how their path got there. I can't tell you because my path was unique, but I've certainly encountered lots of people, and I think that you would be surprised at the amount of time that someone will give you just because you have a common interest. And it may seem like it's very specific, but I had a woman contact me via, we keep talking about LinkedIn, but that seems to be the theme in my recent past. A woman contacted me on LinkedIn. I did not know her. And she said, hey, I saw that you had these unique experiences. Do you have time to have a conversation with me? And I said, sure. And from there, I was able to connect her to people who actually were a better fit for the kinds of experience that she was looking for. And so I would just say that networking piece will go far. And what it does is put that you on someone else's radar as well.
Let me ask you the question. Why do you think you need an internship?
Well, not necessarily an internship, but just some kind of way to because the path in the biology field is kind of mostly geared towards bench research. Right? So it's difficult, or at least there's not really any way to switch from that bench research directed trajectory to something more towards consulting, or there doesn't seem to be an obvious avenue to take.
I'm thinking.
I mean, if there's something else besides internship, like I'm open to that.
Are you thinking about consulting or just the industry job in general?
Well, I'm thinking about consulting, obviously, but also any kind of industry job, right? But just less related to doing the base bench work.
I would say just when you're on the job market, just apply for those jobs, and look at those people working for Facebook as a data scientist. How many of them has graduated a math program or like? Actually, I have a very good friend who graduated as a physics PhD from the University of Chicago, and she's now working as a data scientist for Facebook. They know you have this background and is different from what they're doing. And that's okay. That's okay. Then that's expected. And if they hire other consultants with science backgrounds, if they see values in those graduates, they will see value in you as well. And it's okay not to have the background, not even have the connection. I think that's okay.
We have all different backgrounds, totally different backgrounds.
I want to thank you for both the way that you responded, because what I heard is it's about transferable skills. And if you go back and think about, both of you were hired to use skills, and if they weren't necessarily the exact skills that you were using in developing your PhD. Essentially, I would suggest you might also try to learn more about some of the consulting firms that are dealing with biological sciences, right? We're in this area. We have a biological corridor. There's a biotech hubs in San Francisco and Boston, and that you know, Dr. Google, who are the top science consulting firms? And then you learn more and see if there might be some alumni and some other individuals that could just share with you about that. I'm going to do a little plug for the Cheeky Scientist. Have you heard of the Cheeky Scientist? I'm not promoting that you buy his products, but I'm just saying, if any of you have already done that, please talk later with Yuri. But the point is that these consulting firms, Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, EY, depending on who their clients are, they're looking to gather subject matter experts, and then you learn about project management, you work on teams. So I think you're approaching the problem. I loved how you asked the question. You're asking the question, how can I follow this linear process, and do I have to have this experience? And I think that the real question is, what skills do you have that really consulting firms are looking for, and you should focus on those. And trust me, PhDs develop those skills. You heard project management, facilitation, analyzing quantitatively and qualitatively, the kinds of research that you read, right? So I think that instead of thinking, I don't have X, I think you need to focus on what you do have and learn from those who are out there already about how you bring that value to this set of employers. Okay? Let's go in the back.
My name is Yolande from Geographical Science, and I'm interested in natural resource management consulting side. And the thing on my head is I just graduated, and now I respond to what the firm are looking for. But when we talk with them, they're like, "You're the perfect fit, but because you're a PhD already, you're gonna have trouble in human resources." like, you overqualified. So, I mean, I didn't know that being a PhD would like, shut the person doors. I don't know how to explain to them that I need that kind of job because it's, I'm going to learn a lot from them. I'm going to learn and it's going to help me for my next step in my career. So it's really good to me and I'm good to them. But the problem is like they don't know how human resources can manage the fact that I'm a PhD already. I don't know how to explain to them that I'm willing to work with them.
How does that strike each of you, Dr. Han, Dr. Albany?
You want to take it first?
Well, I would say apply anyway, and they'll figure it out. I think that I am not in your field, but I would say apply anyway and apply elsewhere. Perhaps the firm that you're looking at specifically, I think that I don't know why they would say that the human resources doesn't know how to deal with that. That may be unique to their firm, but I don't think that is indicative of the industry. I think that the industry is wide, and I think that they are looking for diverse skills, and it may be that you're laser focused on a specific firm because you know about their reputation, but
the opposite. Like I'm very diverse. I'm not from the U.S. and I'm from the region that they have the project on.
Sure.
So I know about the region from ground, and I have some degrees from here. So I'm good.
Right.
Skills wise. The problem is they are not sure that human resources will take a PhD.
Sure.
I think there are two thoughts. One is when they tell you you're overqualified or whatever reason they reject you, it may not be the true reason, may not be the real reason. This is something else too. When you're on the job market, be prepared to take a rejection. It's hard the first time, it's hard the 13th time. I had experience. I flew out to the company, and they all seemed to like me a lot. When I left, even the partner said, "Well, I look forward to seeing you come on board." I'm like, "That's a good sign, right?" And then when I got and also the case I did, and then they just told me I did the best among all the candidates. Well, I did the best. I should be hired, right? And then I got a call, and they said, I think the case study you did can be improved." I mean, how can I be the best and it still can be improved? That doesn't make any sense. So, I asked them to elaborate more, and they just whatever. So what I'm saying is, it may not be the real reason. You may want to talk to the person who interviewed you and to ask anything I could have done better. Just like very positive attitude, right? Don't complain and everything. That's my first point. My second point is the overqualification. The only reason I can think of with HR is some jobs they have a pay range for PhD. Yeah, so they may not be able to give you that pay range, but if you're okay to take
the job,
the lower level, and I'm sure they're more than happy to hire someone with a higher degree than they.
Yeah, that's actually what they were talking about. They're like, maybe it would not be.
But did you want the position?
I need to learn from there, and I say I'm willing to learn and to take what you can offer. That's how we end it. But we can understand.
One of the things I'll do a plug for is getting advice from other PhDs that are out there. Leveraging that network for information is very powerful. And I would encourage any of you that have these real specific questions to schedule an individual appointment through Careers for Turk to come on in and talk with me. And we can even dissect it more and try to figure out what's going on. But I like to say that you either learn from each interaction or you get a job offer. So there's no such thing as failure as you're going through the process of job searching. You're just continually learning more about how to have those conversations and how to present yourself. So being overqualified is something that they may be telling you the truth, or maybe it's something that you want to raise about all of the value that you would add and that you're willing to do this. Okay, so I was reminded to make sure that I repeat the questions so that those out there on WebEx can hear it. So let's take this question and then we'll go there, and I'm going to read what's also coming up on WebEx. So 1, 2, and then we'll see what's next.
My name is Zara. I'm a second year bioengineering PhD student. And my question is, I'm kind of early in my program and haven't gotten interested in management consulting. So what can I do over the next few years while I'm in the program? Or something that if you thought like you were going, like if you knew like early in your PhD that you wanted to be a consultant, what steps would you have like done like retroactively?
Get an internship. I knew people from Duke. She got an internship with a economic consulting firm, Cornerstone. And then actually a lot of consulting firms, they have specific internships for PhD candidates. Yeah. And then it's a fast track. You go to those internship and that will transition to a full time. You don't even need to go to job market. I wish I could have done something like that.
Right, and a lot of those real specific internships have very strict application deadlines, and they're usually very far in advance. So if you're even thinking about consulting careers at some of the larger firms that would have these structured internships, you should do some research on Vault now so that you can, on their website, to just see what kind of internships do they have so that you can get plugged into those deadlines. Because once that train starts moving, if you haven't put your application in, or if you haven't gone to some of the group meetings that are hosted by the firm, that's usually the start of the process, right?
I was going to say that I can remember, I didn't think that I was going to go into consulting. So I remember that McKinsey would host, as an example, and I think even like Deloitte or one of the other would host these graduate student functions, and they were really recruiting events that they were looking, and they would, say we're interested in this broad range of fields, and that's also to your question. Attend those, because you don't know what they're looking for. They have projects all around the world, all around the country, and you just have no idea the skills that they're looking for, and so I would look for those types of events.
Okay, let me make sure that I get your question, and then I'm going to ask one from the web. Go ahead.
All right. My name is Star. I'm a fifth-year PhD in mechanical engineering. My question is actually regarding more of like the application. So, it's not like I'm like the only PhD graduating with whatever that skills that they, certain companies might be looking for. So then, how do you format your resume or CV in a way that you will stand out when you apply to certain companies, right? So right now, when we're applying to specific industries, we are aiming specifically towards the skill that they're looking for. So it's easier. We just have to write the skills that they're looking for. But in consulting, as you guys said, it is broad, right? But then writing everything down that we have experienced in PhD to show how many skills we have is going to be kind of too much for, I would say, as recruiters to look at all of that, right? So then how would you, if you were to apply for this consulting position for the first time without any experience, how would you structure your resume or CV or application in general so that recruiter will be like, wow, I would like to know more about this candidate or applicant?
I would say write a cover letter. Some people say cover letter is optional. Even you will find the application website, the process, they will tell you it's optional. But do it if you really want to target that specific firm. But
why is that, Jen?
Oh, because they read it, and it's shorter than your CV. Academic people have longer CV, and it's so long.
You can craft your story.
Yeah, I said, how would you craft it? Would you craft it in a way that you take just one specific research and then just talk about, oh, I did this research applying these skills? Because I'm sure that everyone will say that. That's why I'm asking, how would you make it stand out that if you were doing this?
see you're focusing on you, right? Your research, your skills. But then I would direct you towards more on them. Go to their website, see some of the consulting firms, they have the typical cases, and you can tell what kind of skills they want, and tailor your research towards what they want. And it really depends on what job you're applying. I'm not familiar with your field, but I'm thinking if you're applying for a financial consultant, that's what I'm doing. You want to showcase your programming skills. You want to showcase your quantitative thinking, that type of skills. But there's like so many firms. There's so many applicants. You kind of have to accept the fact that there's always uncertainty, and the HR guy maybe pick your resume over the other. We're not. There's a lot of uncertainty. So there's very little you can control in that process. But I would say do your homework and make sure your resume is clear and clean and clear. You'll be surprised how many people have typos on their resume, and that's definitely a no-no for consulting. We're very specific to details, because you're going to present it to the client. If you typo, you're losing the deal. So do your homework and be very detail oriented.
I would also take inventory of your experiences, and this is as an exercise before you even start applying. With me, I was not as, again, laser focused, and I think that's why we sort of present different sides, because my experiences were in some cases all over the place, and I really had to sit down and say, what are the skills, what made me successful in these different spaces, and then I'm able to showcase those things. And, as you said, that stands out when you get in an interview environment, or even when you're writing your letter, because you really know what you're good at, what you enjoy, where your gaps are. And it's okay to have gaps because you're going to learn. So I don't know if that answers your how question. Again, I'm not in your field, but you, whatever experiences you've had as a graduate student and even career-wise, sit and map that, and then you'll get a better picture of yourself and how you can market yourself and what makes you unique. Because sure, there may be hundreds of people with your specific, major, but your specific path, there are not hundreds of people with that. There's only one you, and there is a position for you somewhere.
And I'm going to supplement. Some of the resources in the Vault Guide will show you examples, and there are other resources. Inside of Versatile PhD, there are narrative stories of individuals who've been hired in consulting, and there are some sample resumes or CVs. But I think what I'm hearing you say is, how am I going to pass the paper test?
Exactly.
However, you heard Jen say, well, if so-and-so that I know called, I would go to my manager and take their materials and say, we need to hire this person. So I don't want you to think that it's a magic potion for a resume. It's this combination of talking with people and making sure your materials showcase the value that you're going to add. So there's not one absolute recipe. The cover letter is essential because it's showing how you're going to communicate with potential clients. And so I would encourage you, we are coming up on time. I want to make sure that you have a chance to talk and ask some other questions. I hope that you'll begin to see that as PhDs, you can do some basic reading about consulting, and then you should start to try to reach out and talk to some people in these roles and go to any of the open houses that some of the firms are having, and begin to learn more about the process. Okay. So
I'm going to add a point on
yes,
that.
I'm going to ask you each if you want to add anything, and then we'll kind of stop and eat more. There's one question I want to address, and it was about, what if you want to start your own consulting firm? So do either of you have thoughts on starting your own consulting firm? And then I'm going to add a little bit to it.
Get to that in a second. Let me just add one more quick point. I think things will be helpful for people in the job market. If you find someone on LinkedIn who is working in the firm that you want to work, contact him or her and ask him to refer you. And that's not like official refer. It's not like I'm going to my boss telling him this is the person I know and let's hire him or her. It's not. It's really just you sending your resume or your CV to that employee, and he or she will send it to the HR or through the internal portal. Or he or she will give you their employee ID, and then you will put in as a referral ID when you're applying. So that's a shorter route, because to HR, those are the internal referral people. It's a very short list, and those people usually get an interview.
Also, at least in my husband's company, you get money for referring someone. If they're hired.
Yeah,
but you get up to like $3,000 or $4,000 for referral. Yeah. So it's actually beneficial to refer someone.
But to EY is if you're a student, say I refer someone. If that person is a student, I don't get anything. But if that person has working experience or is working at some other firm and decide to go to EY because of my referral, I think I'll get like a little compensation. So it's a win-win. Just try that.
So what do you think about if you want to ultimately be your own business and have your own consulting firm? You've been doing that, right?
I've worked as an independent contractor. That's a little bit different than being, I think, I've worked as an independent contractor consultant for a number of years. I don't know that was like a full out business. When I heard the question, I thought about the CEO of the company I was previously with, who started his own, went to business school, worked at one of the large firms, and started his own company with a single contract. And his business has grown. That company has getting to 100 employees, and so and he was a relatively young man in his 40s and had grown his company. So it is possible, and he had gone the management consulting route. That's different than sort of the independent consultants, which you'll have a single contractor. But it is possible, but you have to study. And again, he came from one of the bigs, so he was able to see how that worked. And he's shrewd and smart and all of those things. And so I think that it's not easy, but it's possible.
Do you have thoughts on that, Dr. Huff?
I admire people who is entrepreneurial. I thought about it a little bit, but I'm not the type of entrepreneurial. But I would say, if you want to start your own company, do it on the side first. You see people on the Shark Tank, and they sold their house, they sold their kidney, and they started their own farm. They look very desperate, but don't do that. Don't put yourself in that position. And just if you work for someone and then you have some spare time, you want to starting a company is not that as hard as you thought. My husband has his own business. You just need to do some paperwork, register something, pay some registration fee, and then you have a company. Doesn't mean it's profitable, right? So you have a regular job, you're doing your side business, and you're collecting experience, right? You're reaching out to some clients and having some failure, success stories. You're just building up your profile. And then maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, this part side business gets bigger and bigger. Once you feel like this is sustainable, this is the pay is measurable to your regular job, and you can decide.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to give our panelists another round of applause, okay? And hopefully this is the start, getting your wheels thinking. I want to do